Part 2. Billionaire laughed when a poor girl said, "Your son will wake up in 1 month." Then came the shock. Before Lagos woke, before the buses roared and Danfoss screamed on the streets, Ruth was already on her feet. Her slippers slapped against wet ground in Mushin, a cracked bucket pressed to her chest. The air smelled of kerosene smoke and stagnant water, but her mind was sharper than hunger. 23 years old, yet her eyes carried the weight of 40. She tied her late mother's faded wrapper tight around her waist and whispered, "Just one more day. Just one more chance." She worked nights cleaning offices in Victoria Island, days selling bread at Ojalegba Junction. But her real hunger wasn't for food. It was the vow she carried ever since her little brother's chest stopped rising in a government hospital bed. She swore no child should suffer in silence again. That vow was what dragged her to the mansion gates of billionaire Michael Okoye, whose only son had been in a coma for 6 months. The guards tried to chase her away, but Ruth's voice cut through their laughter. "Give me 1 month, sir. I will wake your son." Michael turned, his face hard. "Who are you? You think this is a game? The best doctors in Lagos, London, America have tried. And you, just a girl with dust on her slippers, you dare?" Ruth held his gaze. "I'm not a doctor. I'm not rich. But I know what it is to sit beside a bed and wait. Give me 1 month. That's all I ask." His anger wavered. Something in her tone was not begging, not arrogance, but certainty. Against reason, against pride, Michael muttered, "Fine. 1 month." But before this moment, Ruth's life had been nothing but broken zinc roofs, rain dripping into rusty pots, swollen schoolbooks she could never finish. Her mother Mary stitched uniforms by lantern light, whispering, "Ruth, kindness heals more than medicine." When Mary died, those words stayed folded like paper in Ruth's chest. For a time, she thought love might rescue her. At St. Dominic's Church, under the cracked cross, Ruth noticed Julian, the choir boy with a torn hymn book and a golden voice that cut through broken speakers. He once offered her water after service. "You look tired," he said gently. It was the first time in months she felt seen. Bread shared, laughter under streetlights, whispered dreams of scholarship. Ruth allowed herself to hope. But Mama Esther, the church elder, once pulled her aside. "Be careful, child. Gold that shines too bright can burn your hand." Ruth smiled politely, blind to the warning. The betrayal came swift. Ruth wore her best second-hand dress, walking into a restaurant in Victoria Island. She believed tonight Julian's cousin would offer her a scholarship, but through the glass she froze. Julian sat with another girl, laughing, sliding an envelope across the table. His words floated when the door swung open. "She's just a desperate bread seller. She actually believes me." The bread rolls slipped from Ruth's arms into the gutter. Her hands shook so violently she couldn't even bend to pick them up. She ran until her chest burned, collapsing into her small room, weeping into her mother's wrapper. That night, grief became fire. Ruth whispered, "You think I am nothing? Then I will rise with nothing but kindness." She began reading medical books scavenged from stalls, shadowing nurses at public hospitals. At night she volunteered, wiping brows, humming songs to patients who had no visitors. That was when she heard of Michael's son Toby, 6 months in a coma, money wasted, doctors leaving. Ruth clenched her fists. If no one else can reach him, maybe kindness can. And so she stood at Michael's gate with steady eyes, speaking the words that would change everything. "Give me 1 month. I will wake your son." From the first day, Ruth sat beside Toby's bed. She read aloud, children's stories, psalms, even medical notes she barely understood but spoke with conviction. She held his hand when storms rattled the hospital windows. She sang softly, the very songs Julian once sang, but this time real without betrayal. Michael watched, skeptical. "Why do you believe this will work?" he asked one late night. Ruth didn't look up from Toby's fragile hand. "Because kindness doesn't need permission." Doctor scoffed. Nurses smirked. But on the 29th day, Toby's finger twitched. Gasps filled the room. Ruth leaned close, whispering through tears, "Toby, you're safe. You can wake now." On the 30th day, his eyes opened. Slow, fragile, alive. The hospital erupted. News cameras flooded in. Reporters shouted, "Mr. Okoye, how did your son wake after 6 months?" Michael's voice trembled as he turned to the flashing lights. Not money. Not medicine. A poor girl's faith. Behind him, Ruth stood silent, eyes wet, her mother's wrapper tied firm. She didn't need the cameras. Her victory was already alive, breathing in front of her. But the world never stays quiet. Julian returned, face full of guilt, words full of rehearsed regret. Ruth, I was stupid. I didn't mean it. I still love you. Let's start again. Ruth stared at him, calm as a still river. Julian, you taught me something. Some people only see your hunger, not your heart. And I will never let you touch mine again. Instead, Grace, Michael's sister, stepped forward. She had watched Ruth closely. We run a foundation for caregivers. We need people like you. Not as charity, as recognition. Will you join us? Ruth hesitated. I never finished school. Grace smiled warmly. You finished something better. You never quit on people. For the first time, Ruth was offered not pity, but dignity. Months later, in a quiet Lagos courtyard, Ruth introduced little Toby, now walking, smiling, to Mama Esther. A simple wooden table stood between them, a loaf of bread, cups of water, laughter in the air. No cameras, no reporters, just family. Mama Esther squeezed Ruth's hand and whispered, See, my child? Kindness heals more than medicine. Ruth smiled, tears in her eyes. The wrapper still around her waist, but this time she wore it not as a burden, but as a crown. Outside, the city roared with horns and shouts. But in that courtyard, Ruth finally found what she had been waiting for her entire life. Silence that did not hurt. Silence that healed.